Welcome everybody to Hodgepodge Woodworks. Today I've got Daniel from Turnage de Bois with me. I will put him in the background and show you guys what I'll be turning. So I've got a piece of sweet gum. It's just under 12 inches, no, just under 13 inches in diameter, and it is 6.5 inches deep. It's definitely wet, but I'm going to be trying out a new grind on one of these bowl gougers I have. It's got a 40/40 grind on it, which Stuart Batty has made kind of a popular grind. So I've never really used it before, just watched a lot of his videos. So I'll try it out. So if you want to go through who's all in the chat, Daniel, I'll get started.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hodgepodge Show. We have Radar the Woodturner. We have Seth with Brickhouse Craftworks, Tommy's Workshop, Doug Miller, Richard Phelan. We have Rob with Copper Owl Woodturning, and Gene. Gene Long is in, and my grouping wasn't listed at looking up, and I'm just checking through the chat to see if there's anybody else that I missed. Chris Dodds is in, and Tanya Beecher Woodturning has just joined as well.
Welcome, Tanya. So I'm already kind of having a difficulty because one thing I think they say, or Stuart says, is you don't want to ride the bevel, you want to float the bevel. If you ride the bevel, it bounces kind of like it's doing. So that's one thing you got to kind of get used to.
So it's a little bit different cutting style than a normal grind.
Yeah. And the left hand isn't supposed to do anything but push the tool down. It shouldn't guide or anything like that.
Okay.
But supposedly you can go from like a rough cut where you take off like 3/4 of an inch of the wood to like a finished outside of the bowl, so where you don't have to sand.
Wow. Well, what better place to try one brand new than live where the whole world can see you the first time?
Yeah.
Tomboy Chris, the lone wolf, has joined. Greetings, everybody. Greetings, Tomboy. Mark, the gentleman woodturner, has joined. Greetings, Mark.
Greetings, Mark.
And I have my, just because I knew Mark would join, well, I thought he might, I still have another cup of cinnamon roll coffee. Seth says to use your left hand to hold down on the top of the tool.
Yeah, I've been trying to do it a little bit.
Yeah, I try to hold my tools like that sometimes as well, but I end up finding myself once in a while pulling along or pushing harder to get a cut, and I'm trying to work out of doing that kind of silliness.
I mean, I think part of the issue is I'm still cutting a little bit of bark, so maybe that's just throwing it off a little bit, just the different densities, but we'll see how it continues.
So throughout the chat, Gene Long indicated that they started turning just about a year ago, which is coming up real close to mine. I started May of last year. Chris Dodd says that they started in October of 2019 with turning. So the question today for the chat is, how long have you been turning, or when did you start? So we'll start with you, Hodge, since you can kind of chat while you're doing that. When did you start, and what got you started?
So I started back in early 2013 because I was initially kind of interested in flat work, and I had went to a woodturners convention, or a woodworking convention here in Houston, and while I was there, the local Houston club had a booth where they would allow you to sign up to turn a pin, and like if it in a time slot or whatever. And so I signed up to do that, and I turned a pin, and I was kind of super interested in turning then, because it took like 20-30 minutes, and I already had a finished product. So I joined the group and been wood turning ever since, except for about a 2-year break in 2017 when my house flooded due to Hurricane Harvey, and then I had to basically rebuild the whole first floor.
Okay. Tanya Beecher, wood turning, says that she started almost 2 years ago. Richard Phelan's been turning since 2017. David Dedman and Tim from TF Turning have both joined the show, so welcome you two. In response to my coffee comment, Chris Dodd says he's having a beer-flavored beer, and Mark is having a gingerbread latte. Seth started the summer of 2019, but's been turning seriously since April of 2020. Shannon Duca has joined as well. Greetings, Shannon and Aurora. I'm assuming Aurora, well, maybe it might be. It's probably not too early for Aurora to be up.
So I think the issue I was having was I was just trying to go too fast. Right now the lathe's only at 700 RPM, and Stuart Batty talks about how you should try and go basically as fast as you feel comfortable, which I'd like to turn it up a little quicker, but it's still a little out of balance. But I'm getting a lot better cut now.
So you just adjusted the angle a little bit?
No, I just had to go slower feed rate.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm going to move the tailstock out of the way because a lot of the stuff involves having the tool rest, the handle way out here to the right where you couldn't do it without the tool rest. So I'm actually going to take the tool rest off the lathe and set it down.
Doug Miller at Woodspun Round says that he started turning in the mid-70s, but he picked it up again in earnest in 99. Radar has been turning for about 6 months. Tim from TF Turning says January 28th of 2018, he made his first lathe thing. I love the technical terminology that we all use at random times. Rob with Copper Owl Wood Turning says first turned years ago, on and off, just got back into turning a year and a half ago. Do you find that not having as much pressure on the tool to hang on to it, so to speak, that it's a little more susceptible to catches, or what have you thought?
Well, I'm still just trying to figure out the angle, I guess, because I think my previous tool was, I don't even know what angle it is. I just set it and kind of used it.
Steve with Fenrica Wood Stuff has joined. Hi, Steve. And Nick Castle has also joined. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Hopefully I can figure this out and actually get this thing done within an hour. I know Scott has a live in 50 minutes.
Tomboy Chris says, I have everything I need to turn, but I don't have a place to set up my workspace anymore. Well, hopefully that gets resolved pretty quickly for you, Tomboy.
Another thing I think might be an issue is there's a knot here. And so the whole thing with this 40-40 grind is you want to cut, you don't want to cut directly into the end grain, so that might be causing some issues, but we'll see. It's probably more user error, but.
As Shannon says, I think the pandemic has had a small silver lining in that a lot of us have had time to consider pursuing the things we enjoy since we couldn't do a lot of the busy work. I agree. And I will say that with this pandemic, my picking up this hobby has resulted in some amazing friends that I've made and a lot of things that I've learned, and I've appreciated every bit of it. So David Dedman started turning about 12 years ago, but had a few breaks. Mark, the gentleman woodturner, started in April of 2018. And DJ Brinkley has joined. Hi, DJ.
Welcome, DJ. The shavings are a little better now, where they're actually stringy.
And Dale from Maple Tree Studios has joined. Says, afternoon, Harry. Oh, and Robert. Hi, Dale. Hey, Ruben Woodcraft has joined. Hi, Ruben. Seth says, one hump I had to get over when learning to use the 4040 was keeping pretty heavy downward pressure on the tool with the left hand, but not using it to steer the cut.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that I've been trying to do that more from the overhand like this. I'm able to put more pressure. I'm just wondering if that's right, because when Stuart does it, he's just pulling and looks like he's just barely got his fingertips on it, but obviously he's been turning for 40 years, so.
Mark corrected to say that 2019 was when he started. Tim from TF Turning said, I was made redundant from a job I hated in April of 2019, so now turning is his job. Pretty wild few years.
I got my quick sharpen, which you have to do by hand, so that's another learning curve.
You have the Wolverine system, right?
Yeah.
Can you mess around with that and see if you can get that set to where you could do that, or is it always going to be freehand?
I mean, the whole thing is with the Wolverine. I'll try and hold on. So I can kind of show it on camera once I'm done. So when you use the Wolverine jig, you use your little Varigrind jig, which rotates off a single pivot point, so it will create a curve along the whole facet of the bowl gouge, I guess, or the cutting edge of the bowl gouge. But with Stuart's 4040 grind, you want the wings on both sides to be flat, so you get kind of an issue trying to use the Varigrind jig.
Okay. That's good to know. I did want to ask you, I know that you're working up next weekend towards the Virtually Crafty show, the craft festival. I know that there's a lot of people on there. Can you kind of go through what all is going on with that and what you know right off the top of your head?
Well, if you can just, it's definitely dull if you can see that it's cutting a lot better now. So I think that might have been the main issue. But yeah, as far as the Virtual Crafty goes, that if you want to put in www.virtuallycrafty.com, that should take you to the YouTube channel that I guess Dale and JP set up. But let me move the tool rest. But that's going to be on the 27th. I think it starts at, I know JP's first, and usually it's at like 4 a.m. Central Time. I don't know if that's the same with the daylight savings time the way it is, or if it's maybe 5 a.m. But Dale is in the chat. He should be able to answer any of that stuff.
Yeah, he was just wanting you to talk about it. He's popped up while I was waiting on you to.
But yeah, I know off my memory, JP will be first, and then followed by Steve at SK Crafts. And then after that, I'm not exactly sure. I know Wayne the Woodturner will be on, Andy from who will do some awesome wood carving, and then I know Anarchus Costas will be on. Basically, there's 16 hours of makers making all sorts of stuff. There'll be glass blowing as well as ceramic pottery spinning, and
there's some glass blowing as well.
yeah, the glass blowing last couple of months ago was one of my favorite demos. They did a really great job. All right, that wasn't right. So I think one issue I have is, since I converted this from an Irish, or well, a swept back kind of David Ellsworth grind, I haven't fully gotten the entire wings straight, so there's like kind of a angle there. So if I try to take too big of a cut, it gets kind of weird. I'm riding the bevel again, I think.
Rob, CP Woodturner, has joined. Hi, Rob.
Welcome, Rob.
Yeah, Hodge, you are, as of right now, from what I can see, you're about 920 subscribers. So that's great. You're getting close to that 1,000 mark. It would be awesome if we can help Hodge and Harry get up to 1,000 subscribers in time for the virtual crafty next weekend. So please hit that thumbs up, share his channel with your friends, people who might be interested, and let's just see if we can get Hodge and Harry over that 1,000 mark so we can go from there.
Yeah, that would be awesome, guys. I plan to do a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. I know I'll have to do the drawing for the 500 subscriber piece after this live here. I think at noon is when the deadline's supposed to end. But the giveaway the winner will be announced tomorrow in my premiere.
I had mentioned that I hope that Tomboy gets room and figures out a place for his shop and everything. And he said, Wood from Oregon Burl is beginning to take over my living room.
Who's this that talked about
Tomboy Chris, the lone wolf.
Yeah,
I got 2 pieces from them this past week, and then I won one of their giveaways right at the end of the thing, and then I won their drawing that they had for the quick math turnaround that I asked them to send to Lewis, the Klondike craftsman.
So I think I'm having a bit of an issue right in this area because there's a knot that's right here, so I'm cutting directly into the end grain. Probably could sharpen my tool again, but
can you get through that with a different grind and then come back to that? Would that be easier?
Let's see. I'll go back to my traditional Ellsworth type grind, and yeah, I mean that's just because I know how to use it, probably.
I was just thinking about getting your way through that tougher part and then going back to it to see if that helped a little.
Compare. I mean, from what I can tell, I don't really notice a difference in the finish cut, but it's probably because I don't know what I'm doing with the 40/40 at the moment.
And Ben Jammin has joined. Greetings, Ben.
And this wood is definitely wet. You can see. Let me see if I can change a camera. I'll adjust this camera. There's water all over basically everywhere. If you can see it, there's water all up here. So
get your toothbrush out and do that at the same time. Save you time.
Yeah. Get Harry back out of the way here. There goes my mouse. All right, back to work. Move the tail rest a little closer.
Scott Tague has joined. Hi, Scott.
Welcome, Scott.
Benjamin is asking, what software do you guys use for video editing? So what do you use, Hodge?
I use Adobe Premiere Elements, which is the non-subscription based one.
I use Vegas Pro 14. Mole Valley Maker has joined. Hi, hello.
Welcome, Mole Valley.
Seth from Brickhouse says, Hodge, you'll just struggle with it just a little bit, and then it'll click, and you'll be good to go. Seth uses the free version of DaVinci Resolve. Lawrence Bugasia has joined. Hi, Lawrence. Welcome. Ruben uses Lightworks. Steve Fenrica uses iMovie.
Let me sharpen this again real quick.
Tim has to run. Have a good one, Tim. Thanks for coming by. Oh, apologies. Apologies there, Tomboy Chris. Shannon says that Todd also uses DaVinci Resolve. Mark uses the paid version of Filmora Wondershare. Yeah, Shannon, I bet he is. He's up late working quite often, I'm sure. Ben said he's trying Lightworks, but it seems to have this weird thing where if you increase the speed of a video by more than 600%, you lose audio. I cut my audio way down when I'm not speaking to the camera just because, well, I like having a little bit of music when I play, when I have my videos, but I'm sure people get tired after a while of hearing the nonstop grinding sound of a tool on wood. Ruben makes a good point that 1,000 speed, it'll sound weird anyway. Shannon says, yes, as a person, I admire his work ethic, but as a wife, I'd like him to rest more often. Yeah, I can understand that.
So right now, I don't know, I'm not really paying attention too much of the shape just because I'm trying to practice cut with this gouge, I suppose. So it's kind of, it's too straight at the moment, but I'll see what I can do with it.
Well, if you're going to practice with a piece, might as well be a wet piece that might warp and you can always reshape later anyway. I am super excited because yesterday was my last day at my job. And I have a week off before the next job starts, so I will have a good amount of time to dedicate to my YouTube cross-channel challenge piece.
Try to do more of a finishing cut here, because I think if I were to make this a little shorter, the shape would be decent.
Rob CP, I made a miniature bowl today, less than 10 millimeters, and dropped it in the shavings. Shannon says that the coloring in that piece of sweet gum is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Rob with Copperell Woodturning asks, does the spindle speed affect the cut of the 4040? Stuart seems to go a lot faster. And I know that you said this piece was off balance a little bit, so you didn't want to go super fast.
I was wanting to, let's see if I can turn it up now a bit. For whatever reason, there's some vibration in my lathe. I know Stuart mentioned that sliding lathes with sliding headstocks, sometimes there can get dirt or shavings underneath where the lathe and the headstock meet. So maybe I need to clean it a bit. But see what I can do.
Yeah, I will tell you that with this challenge that our good buddy Bruce came up with, I am going to try something I have never tried before. So we shall see how terribly it can end up going. Who knows? I could even lose a finger, maybe an ear. Hopefully not. That would look, I look odd enough, much less with just one ear. That would be really weird. Dave with Mole Valley Maker says, my water is done. Just need to edit the video. Can't wait to see it there. There have been some great videos put out so far, and some stuff out on Instagram has been good as well. So it's exciting to see all that. For those of you who, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say this might be the wettest wood I've ever turned. I think here's that knot again, so that maybe that's what's causing a little bit of weird vibration. There's a little bit of spaltine right here, but it might all get lost eventually.
Yep. Terry with TJ Turning says that, or has just joined.
Welcome, Terry.
For those of you on Facebook who are participating in the challenge, I did create a private group called YouTube Cross Channel Challenge. So if you want to be a part of that group where we have discussions and show pictures and support each other. Whoa, careful. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just wasn't paying attention. I was trying to switch the camera.
Okay.
And I guess my tool touched the wood without it being on the tool rest. So there's a big gouge right here.
Well, I'm glad nothing serious happened there.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're participating in the challenges, then hop over to that group and request to join. There's just a few questions to answer real quick, and then we get you in the group and enjoy the conversation with everybody as we support each other. So Rex B asks, how does Axe compare to Yorkshire Grit? And I've never used Yorkshire Grit. I've used Axe and it works great. I believe that Yorkshire Grit has their regular and then they have a microfine, whereas Axe is just the one abrasive level. I'm not sure if it's considered just a standard or more of a microfine there. I don't know if you know, Hodge.
I'm not sure. They have their polish restoring paste, which I feel like there's some sort of abrasive in that as well, so it might be similar to the microfine.
Okay.
But I'd have to do some research.
Gene Long says they broke the tip of the finger and got 6 stitches from a lathe accident this week. That is unpleasant. Hopefully everything's okay on that. You'll be back to turning real quick. Mark, the gentleman wood turner, says no comparison. Yorkshire Grit is far superior. I have not used Yorkshire Grit, so I can't speak one way or the other.
All right.
Mark says he has used both. I know that we certainly appreciate the support that Axe gives you with their product and your channel support there, Hodge. I know that's always a good thing.
Yeah, there are some good people, and I don't mind supporting local. Well, local is within the U.S. a local company. I think they're based out of Pennsylvania.
Yep,
so
I do believe so.
if you can see, the rim is not wobbly, so I'm going to true up the rim here while I have it in this position.
Is that the technical term, kabobbly?
Well, I think I said wobbly.
It sounded like kabobbly. Maybe it's just me not hearing things properly this early in the morning. I'm only about halfway done with my coffee. That's my excuse.
Now, the way Stuart talks about this kind of cut is like a peeling cut that he does. So I'm just using the flat side of one of the cutting edges, which seems to work pretty good.
Yeah, Shannon says that Todd uses both of them, and he also uses Brad. So he goes through several abrasives and then several different finishes on his last few products or projects he's worked on. Terry makes a good point. He says that Harry spoke over Robert, and that's why I heard it wrong. I agree with that. Harry's first ever on-camera live conversation, and I misheard everything. Thanks for that, Terry.
I think it's true on the rim now. I'm going to go and form a tenon now. I'm pretty happy with the overall shape. It'll be a fairly deep bowl, I suppose. Let me make sure I get the right diameter tenon.
Rob with Copper Owl says he's that they've turned 30 plus bowls over the last few months, and Axe Paste has made each look amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've not tried Yorkshire grit. I hope to at some point in the somewhat near future, because I think that there's good places for a lot of different products. Lately, I know this is going to come as a big shock to most people, but lately I've been using a lot of Brad's Workbench stuff, but I have also used Axe and have been happy with every product that I have used so far. I think that there's good application parts for all types. The Lone Wolf says, here in Norway, we don't have the same products you guys are talking about, so I have no clue what's best. What do you use for abrasives, like an abrasive paste, Lone Wolf? Do you use Yorkshire grit, or is there something else that you use?
I know not everyone uses abrasive paste. I know it just seems, everybody on lives in the UK seems to be all about Yorkshire grit. Before I really got into doing much YouTube stuff, I had never even heard of abrasive paste. Nobody in the club would used it really. But
you have a smudge on your overhead, Hodge.
It's water, I suppose.
That's better.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to have a video that looked like mine where I left a smudge on there for like half the video.
Thanks for letting me know.
Well, can't have some amazing, almost 1,000 subscriber channel.
So I want to make this tenon a little bigger than I typically would, because once it dries, it'll warp, and then I'll have to reshape the tenon, and I don't want the tenon to get too small. So I'm going to check real quick the size of this tenon and make sure I don't turn it too big or small.
Tommy's Workshop has hopped back in. Says, hi, Hodge and Dee Dee. I'm working today, just looking in. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to mash that thumbs up if you like what Hodge does and support his channel, because that's what tells the YouTubes to tell everybody else about his channel. Radar the Woodturner says, the only wax I use is Howard's Feed-In Wax.
I've never tried that. I figured I'd try it at some point.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people use that on like charcuterie boards and cutting boards and stuff. So, but I think that doesn't Bruce over at Jordan Woodworks use that a lot on his stuff too? Or is that something else that he uses?
I think it's the Howard's Feed-In Wax. So the tenon size is good. I'm going to use my point tool and get a crisp corner. I think it might be a little too Now let me check. I want to make sure the bottom of the tenon doesn't touch the bottom of the chuck jaws. So I think I might have to make it a little shorter. Yeah, just under 1/2 inch. Yeah, I'm gonna take off a little bit of this tenon. And then I'm going to want to put the tailstock back up so I can get a dimple in the bottom of this bowl. So it'll help with realignment when I go back to mounting it. Which really makes me want to get one of those swing over tailstock mount things so I don't have to mess around with lifting this.
Rex B said, sorry, I didn't want to start a US versus UK made items. No, not at all. It's always open for discussion, and I think it's good to try out different products and get different takes on things. So here is the link to the virtuallycrafty.com. So make sure that you check that out. There are a lot of makers that are going to be participating, and Hodge is definitely one of them. I am planning on earworming for him again unless something happens. Hopefully it won't. But so you'll get to hear my chit chat throughout his live that next Saturday as well.
So I don't know if you guys have watched my other lives, but I used to have bolts strip all the time, so I've converted it to some pretty heavy duty hex bolts that I can just use my impact wrench with, and they seem to do a great job.
Are those 2-inch?
The depth?
Yeah.
I'd say 1.5 inches. Yeah, 1.5 inches.
Okay. Mole Valley Maker says it's simple economics, though. Unless you have a huge economies of scale, it will always be cheaper to buy a homemade product.
All right. Just going to mount it off the lathe just to make it a little easier to deal with and get it straight, hopefully. All right. Hopefully I can finish roughing this out in 22 minutes because Scott over at the Blue Light Workshop has a live after this. I'm not sure what he's doing, but
Quentin with Deadwood Casting has joined. Welcome, Q.
Welcome, Quentin.
Dave, I just put a link to the group in the chat as well, to the YouTube Cross-Channel Challenge Facebook group. Seth asks, is that your Titan chuck?
Yes, it is. Tighten it down more just because the wood is really wet, so I'll need to check it again probably halfway through.
Q over at Deadwood Casting has some cool projects that are in the works coming up in the next couple of months, so be on the lookout for that for sure, as he's got some fun stuff planned.
Raise the tours. I know he mentioned buying a CNC or something recently, so that should be interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see that happening and being used. So what's on the premiere tomorrow, Hodge, that you got?
So it's the first piece of wood that I've turned from the Oregon burl company. It's a box elder burl that I made a square bowl out of. Now this is really weird because almost every time I've ever turned at least a bowl this big, I always have the tailstock up for the initial part. So this is kind of different to me, I suppose. And because the lathe is only at 500 RPM, it's kind of weird. I'm going to do the peeling cut first to make this more flush.
Lawrence asks, do the bolts that you use, are they easier to unscrew than Phillips or pointy ones?
Yeah, I believe so. Just because I can use the hex bit on the torque drive, and there's less chance of, I guess, stripping, I feel.
Rob CP says that he does not believe that Scott is actually going to go live today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Rex B asks, what is your guide on the size of a tenon? I just got a Jet 1840 and not sure what size tenon for larger pieces, 12 to 18 inches in diameter.
For any 12 inches, I mean, I just got this Titan chuck when I got the new lathe, so everything before that I ever did on my old Harbor Freight, which had a max swing of close to 12 inches, I'd use the Titan, or not the Titan, the Supernova chuck, which these are the jaws I used basically 95% of the time. And their jaws open up to roughly 2.5 inches, but I think probably more like 2 inches would be the appropriate size tenon, so the jaws would be closer to fully round. But I'd say once you get to anything over 12 inches, you should have a bigger jaws. So this is like a little template I have for on the Titan. The jaws are 4 1/4, so I'd use 4 1/4 for anything bigger than 13 inches, I would say.
Yeah, I actually, in the Kansas City Woodturners group that I'm a part of, they were showing some things they had 3D printed, and one of them was a template like you have kind of for the Nova chuck jaws, and I got online and found free versions for 4 different jaw sizes for that. So I had a place 3D print those for me, so I have those to use for quick template guides for getting the size of the tenon and mortises the right size.
I'm just switching to a sharper gouge just to do this leveling off.
Seth says that Oregon Burl auctions are way too addictive. Yeah, I just this past week I bought 2, and then I won one of the freebie giveaways at the end, and then I won the quick math drawing right in the middle of it. So it's kind of fun the way they run those for sure.
All right.
Rob from Copper Owl Woodturning says, I still can't get over the coloring of the sweet gum. Yeah, it just does some awesome stuff in that wood.
So, if I recall correctly, Stuart Batty just talks about doing a bunch of V-cuts to start hollowing the bowl, which is what I'm trying to do. And he talks about putting his finger behind so it doesn't skate back. Let me go to the other camera view and not touch the wood this time. So he talks about putting your finger as a block to keep the tool from skating back like it would normally.
So you put the pressure on the tool rest as opposed to the tool directly?
Yeah, that's because I mean if you put it on top, you still can't keep it from skating back, so you put your thumb as like a barricade.
Gotcha. Lawrence said that Scott does appear to be going live on time still, so.
We'll probably need to sharpen the tool again, but now I have, if it weren't alive, I'd probably try to hollow out one bowl at least with this, but with it being alive, I don't really want to fool with the hollowing system, and I have like 6 other bowl blanks that are bigger than this, so I'll have plenty of nested bowls. I'm going to take the tailstock off the lathe again so it's not in my way. Center the tool rest on the lathe.
I will throw a link out to Scott's live that he has set to go so that everybody has that if they want to jump over and watch Scott, the blue light turner, after this. And don't forget, Hodge has his premiere at 12 o'clock noon Central Time tomorrow. And then I will have my premiere right after that. I just passed 500 subscribers on my channel, so it will be a giveaway project. So please tune in and watch both of those as we have those. And then, of course, definitely support the Virtual Crafty and Hodge live next weekend on the 27th. It's a day full of awesome artists and creators making cool stuff. Seth says that Stuart also talks about using a parting tool to define the width of your rim so you don't skate back across it.
Yeah, but this being a rough turn, I'm not going to worry about that really.
Lawrence says that Harry is anxious, waiting for the bowl to be ready to fill it with shavings to start eating.
Yeah.
He seems pretty excited up there. I think I see a little bit of a smile. He's a little camera shy today, but Lone Wolf asks, what is the clock at to you guys? Right now, it is 7:46 a.m. We had daylight savings time last weekend. I know that I think the UK and most of the rest of the world has it next weekend. But it is 7:46 a.m. here in Central Time, United States of America right now. Seth says he's sneaking up on 400 subs. That is awesome, Seth. Gene says that they think the 4040 works a lot better on the outside of the bowl, not so much on the inside.
Yeah. I know he talks about how once you get to the bottom third, you have to switch to like a bottom feeder. So
Rob says, does Harry prefer wet wood? I am 99% sure Harry prefers wood being wet.
yeah, he likes wet and hardwood, I suppose, as opposed to softwood.
Seth, in his opinion, he says that he has good luck with the 4040 on the inside of the bowl, except on the bottom. So the bowl's on the inside.
Still having that. All right.
Yeah, Chris, that's the downside with being in Australia is that, well, there's a big time difference between Australia and Central Time US. Radar the Woodturner uses InShot for editing. And Lewis, the Klondike Craftsman, has joined. Hi, Lewis. Welcome.
Welcome, Lewis.
It is 1:45 p.m. Where Lone Wolf is, so... So yeah, that's a good breakdown. That's is that GMT +1, Lone Wolf? Terry says, Robert, if you turn the flute vertical and swing right over to the right to start the cut, you won't skid.
where you have it where you have it basically closed.
Well, he says the flute vertical, which would
Vertical.
yeah, and start to the right and then swing over to the right to start the cut. So yeah, Ruben Woodcraft is also at GMT +1. We are typically at GMT -6 here, but with the time zone change, or with the time change being 2 weeks ahead of GMT, we're right now at GMT -5, I believe, for the next week.
So now with these little bridges left, you can use those as your starting point, so you don't really have to worry about it skidding back.
Seems to be cutting a little bit better for you.
Yeah, with only 9 minutes to go, though, I'm going to switch to what I'm more comfortable with, just to try and get this done.
Sure. But, you know, it's all about learning and growing, so.
Yeah, I'll definitely fool around with this some more.
Thanks, Lewis. I'm glad you like that thumbnail. He just said I had a nice thumbnail for my premiere this weekend. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I hope we get a lot of people that participate in the 500 subscriber giveaway project, and that is a worldwide available project. So if you are outside of the United States, you can participate as well and enter for your chance to win that. So it'll be a lot of fun. Lewis just passed 4,500 subscribers, I believe. That's exciting for Lewis. It's good to see amazing people and see their channel grow. So lots of channel growth lately across the board.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Lewis and I started somewhat near the same time. There was a time back in the day when I had more subscribers than him, but then he just kind of blew up.
Yeah. I was telling him the other day, I said, I think I subscribed to you right about 300, 350 subscribers right in there, and then it just exploded. So always good thing. Ben says, one tip I always find helpful to prevent skidding is enter the cut really slowly, and that works for him.
I'm going to go ahead and turn the speed up some more now. I'm going to leave this roughly 1.5 inches in wall thickness.
Mark, the gentleman woodturner. Yeah, me too, Hodge. I was ahead of him. Those pesky Canadians, eh? Love Angel has joined. Hi, Love Angel. Welcome. Shannon, I agree. I agree. I think that the YouTube cross-channel challenge has pushed a lot of people to look at other channels and see the amazing creativity. And that was a big goal when I kind of came up with the idea, was to just showcase all the amazing abilities of everybody across the board and hopefully grow channels and get more interest in wood turning and woodworking and overall craftsmanship. So it's been amazing to see that we're now up to 55 YouTube channels plus several people who are only participating through Instagram. So it's pretty awesome. Lewis says, hey, Mark, don't hate the maker, hate the algorithm. And I will tell you, Lewis, I do hate the algorithm because I made a really cool short and it's been viewed like 160 times and has flatlined out with virtually no views lately. So I hate the algorithm. It'll get better, though.
So I think pretty soon I should be cutting through the heartwood, which will leave a white center, which should be kind of interesting. Or not a white center, but you'll see the sapwood.
Ben, I promise you that is not the reason. He says, it's because you're not naked enough, Dibble D. Yeah, I promise you that is not the reason nobody's watching that short. Radar was at 132 subs last he checked. That's awesome growth. I know Tim over at Bad Apple Woodworks is closing in on the 50 subscriber mark.
Clean out some of the shavings. Still got probably an inch or two to go.
Chris Dodd says, love the color of the inside of the bowl. It's going to change here in just a minute, too. Ben says, what I love about people cutting wet wood is the way that each new cut is slightly darker as it's freshly exposed to the air. It's so satisfying. Yeah, it is really cool to see the wood just change colors as you go, each and every time. Shannon says, I was watching Bad Apple's Flower Challenge again last night. It was so awesome. Shannon, I think the funniest thing about that whole thing was the fact that Tim was not at his premiere. There were about 15 or so of us on there watching the premiere, and everybody kept saying it would have been so much better if Tim had put that piece into his own hair instead of his daughter's hair for the final pictures. I think that was the funniest part of the whole process. Lewis is hoping to participate in the YouTube cross-channel challenge for 2022. Well, Lewis, you can always jump in as you can and participate as you can for sure. So if you get a spare time and you have something that even fits into you got a project you're working on that you feel fits the criteria, you're absolutely welcome to join in at any time and support it. I know you support it anyway, but participate is always fun too.
All right.
Rob asks what sweet gum smells like.
I don't know. Kind of sourish, a little sweet.
Does it smell like bad as elm?
Maybe like some. I don't recall what elm smells like. I don't turn too much of it. Maybe a little bit like a sweet wine.
Seth says it smells like juicy fruit.
Yeah, maybe. Kind of grapey, I guess.
And now you got some water spray on your tailstock camera.
Yeah.
I will tell you that elm smells horrible. It's a nice blue shop towel you use right there.
Yeah. I think I'm almost done. I got a minute left.
kind of gotten through to that. You can see the sapwood there in that one little streak.
Yeah, and I mean when that dries and you rough turn it or you final turn it, then it'll pop through more.
I think I'll take one last pass on
Seth.
the inside.
Yep. Seth, the April challenge is going to be picked by Rob Brandt. Yeah, Lewis says, elm sucks, Double D. Our elm isn't the same as the UK stuff. Yeah, we have here in Kansas, we have American elm, which is a notoriously weak wood, so where it's always dropping, but we also have some Chinese elm and some Siberian elm. So we have a little bit of a mix, but I have not found an elm tree that smells good yet. Lewis says, surely April will be eggs. Well, I would say, yeah, but you already turned your eggs. So if you want to do them again, that's a new project and you can absolutely join.
All right, guys. I don't want to run too far over 8 o'clock, so I'm pretty much done hollowing it. I'll switch to the, you can kind of see the grain, move the tailstock out of the way to get a better view of it. But once this dries, it'll be a pretty bowl. Then I'll go to the overhead cam so you can see the outside of it. Some water, that's why it's so dark here. But it should look pretty nice.
Mark says that he thinks elm smells like wet dog. Yeah, I can see that. Like a wet dog that's been playing in a manure pile.
Thank you guys for joining me today for this hour. And if you guys want to go check out Scott now over at the Blue Light Turner, I'll put in a link here in a moment, unless Daniel's already got one.
I put one in there earlier. He's on right now. I will throw it back in.
All right, sounds cool.
So there's the link to Scott's live.
I'll join you guys here shortly. And yeah, Seth, I'll definitely give the 4040 some more testing here with these other bowls that I have. But I'm going to go ahead and end this live and head over to Scott's and coat this bowl in Anker seal. So I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for coming.
Catch y'all later.